Hi, this is Brian McHenry of McHenry Software. We're going to go through how to set up steer and brake tables. We're going to do a simple example of a couple of vehicles coming towards each other. One steers in front of the other. We're going to show you how you can steer into it, and then also how you can swerve to avoid it and what steps you need to take. First thing we do is new project. There's another new project thing that'll show you that, but I'll just run through it real fast anyhow. New project, we'll call this steer and braking. Go next. Choose a vehicle. We'll do a Mustang. So vehicle 1. Make it a 2002. Add in weight of the driver. Let's put him at 200. Then we'll go make this second one a Lumina. Act like a 96. We'll go sedan Euro. Put in the weight of that driver. Let's say that's at 175. Now we go ahead and, instead of using default, which you can use, we go ahead and grab the actual vehicles. 2002 Mustang. And then we pan down until we find a Lumina. Now we finish. It sets up an initial test, which doesn't have any background. We're going to bring in a background. It also does a T intersection. We're going to change that to be head-on. At some point we will have it so you can actually tell what kind of accident you have, and it'll set that up for you. But this is so simple, that's lower priority. Go ahead and grab, we say out in msmac3D images, we'll just take a 4-lane intersection, bring that in. Now if you click on the picture over here to the right, click set size from points, we go grab and we'll say about here to here is probably 12 feet. See, it's coming up 4, so obviously it's got to be scaled. Go ahead overhead. Now we click on the vehicle, and you notice it brings up a menu. That's vehicle 1, there's vehicle 2. So on vehicle 1, we go ahead and we click on initial position. You see how it puts a little red dot there? We can grab it, put it right here. Vehicle 2, we grab, oops. Vehicle 2, put them down here, and we put a angle. Now, for the first run, whenever I do something, we're going to have the Mustang steer as if it's making this turn and this vehicle comes along. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and move him out of the field of where he would hit it. Now we click on this vehicle, and we're going to go back to the grid. We can actually do it in here, which you see this third, let me go show you that again. There's an icon right up here. This third icon is msmac input card editor, which is going to be everything that's in the other one, and it actually does even tell you descriptions, but we think for beginners you should probably start in the other, and then we're also going to have a little better graphical intuitive. We go back to the grid. Now we go down and we say, okay, vehicle 1 braking is 8 and 9. Vehicle 1 braking is 8. Vehicle 2 braking is 9. Vehicle 1 steering is 10, vehicle 2 steering is 11. So for vehicle 1, we're going to just simply, we have 2's in here, and that's another thing that you need to know about, is that there's 2 different ways you can do tables. There's actually a number of different ways, but these 2 are the main ways you will do it. If you have a 2 there, then it only requires 2 inputs. That's the pre-impact and post-impact for steering and braking. If you put a 1 there, then you actually can put in times like if you have a pre-impact steer or a pause and things like that. We'll do one of the examples with a 1, but for right now we're going to do it at 2. So pre-impact, we're going to give him 5 degrees. So go down here and put a 5. I think we have to change that noise. Maybe it's on my computer or it's in the thing. And we'll leave post-impact for right now at 5. Now the only thing we've changed now is that we put 5 degrees in there. Now because this is pre and post, because there's a 2 here, then that's going to be 5 will prevail. So now we go ahead and run. And we click run. Well, one thing we noticed is we went to the right. We're going to actually steer to the left. That was my first mistake, so we can come in here. And I said that you can basically change all the inputs there. And this probably looks very strange to you new users, but it's actually becomes very familiar, and it's a very simple way to display all the inputs for your vehicle, all the initial positions, specifications, the steer, braking, and friction, and CG height, etc. So on this, instead of +5, we're going to make that -5. And then we go ahead and click OK to auto run. You see it has an option to auto run. You don't have to. Now you see that it has a run. Now one of the things you're noticing is that it really needs a little bit more steer because in order to hit that. So we're going to probably put it up. Let's go ahead and click on that again, and let's make that -7. We go ahead and run it. Now you see that we're getting a little better. That looks like a pretty good steer, 7 degrees to go around that at 30. Now, of course, I also have these at 30 miles an hour, depending on what your steer is, whether it's accelerating, braking. Those are things that we'll talk about in a minute. But now, one of the things that we did is if we look when he's basically in this lane right about here, let's just say we want to hit him there. So you notice that if we just move him up, he looks pretty good. I probably have to move him a little bit forward and then move him up, obviously, to be in that lane. So I click on vehicle 2, click here, and then move him up to approximately there. Now we go ahead and rerun. See, we still missed. Let's go ahead and see what happened here. We're about, it looks like we want to be up about another half width. So we go ahead and click here. And I notice it's a -178. Let's make this -180. Somehow got a little bit of a steering. And then we can actually use this to move up. Let's move up 1 foot. Now we go ahead and click. The combination of a 1 degree change and then the foot up should make it so that they impact. So we're hitting in the back of the vehicle. So the question there is, we really want to hit a little bit earlier. So that's not too bad. But let's just go ahead and move him up just a little bit more. We click on the vehicle again. And instead of, if we go up, that would be a foot, but instead we'll go up, instead of to 11.9, we'll go up to 11.5. We're also going to get rid of a lot of these significant digits. I notice there's quite a lot in here, and we're going to change that so it only has 2. Now we go ahead and rerun. Now you see we hit. Now one of the things we could do on this is, obviously we're hitting the right rear tire. So let's just say that we know that vehicle 1, that tire got locked. So all we have to do is a -1 is a lock, and if that's vehicle 1, and so again this is pre-impact, post-impact, and the right rear, it's right front, oops, let's close that, right front, right rear, left rear, so we put a -1 there. And also, of course, that's a Mustang, so we should take out this engine braking that's on the vehicles, because that's a rear-wheel drive vehicle. And we'll go ahead and put -0.2 in the rear, where it should be. 0.2 of a G, sometimes 0.1. There's different vehicles, different amounts. But so now we have basically 0.2 of a G on the rear engine braking pre-impact, or we could make it 0 if you want, and then it goes to braking within 1/10 of a second. Again, all it does is once we detect contact, it ramps up into the post-impact because there's a 2 there. So now we go ahead and say go. And it reruns it. You see that now he's got a broken or a locked rear wheel. Now, one of the other things we could do is let's go ahead and we're going to make this vehicle swerve to miss. We'll first try it swerving to miss and then swerve to hit. So the first thing we would do, that's vehicle 2, which is in card 11. So we're going to first take the 1 out of here, or take the 2 out of there, I'm sorry. We're going to first take the 2 out of there so that now it is just a function of time, and we're going to, for the first half second, we're going to have no steer. One of the things I got to do is, let's go ahead and cancel this first and try this again. I want to look at, if you go and look at what was the time of the impact, we click the time of the impact. If you click on that output file, we go to run summary, and this is also available in view menu from the regular grid. Run summary says that at 1.6 is when we actually hit. So if we want to say a second before impact, or we actually could walk through this and say, when do we want to? I guess right about here, he might, let's say he perceives and then reacts. So maybe at about a second, 1.2 seconds, we're going to have him start swerving to see if he'll miss. So we go to the steer here, and we make that so for the first 1.2 seconds, no steer. And then for the next 0.3 of a second, we're going to have him steer. Again, positive is right, negative is left. He would steer to his left, so we'll have him steer -5 degrees to his left. One of the things another point that I make is that if you want to put it in at the actual steering wheel, the last field on this, which I'll show you when we go back to the grid in a minute, you can set your steering ratio, and then you would put in your actual steer here. But we're just doing the steer at the front wheel. So now we say OK. I see we run, and you see he didn't seem to steer at all. Let's try that again. Let's see what happened. Okay, I didn't take the 2 out. See, now I have that 2 still in there, so it's pre-impact, post-impact, so it's after impact. But I'm going to put a 1 in there. And again, if there's a 2 in there, it's pre-impact, post-impact. If a 1 in there, you can put as long a table as you want and put different steer and braking. So we're going to say OK. Now, 1.2, he's going to swerve to his left. See how he just started to swerve. Let's start him a little sooner so then you can see the effect a little more. Instead of 1.2, let's start at about 0.8. And let's ramp that in 0.2 of a second. So between 0.8 and 1, he's going to swerve. So that means at 0.8 and 1 second, we have him swerve to his left. See how we can actually miss. Now, one other thing is we could have this vehicle, instead of swerving to his left, swerve to his right. All we have to do there is just change that to +5. And we say OK. Go ahead to reruns. See a little different impact. Now, of course, one of the things you would do here, if this was the type of impact, we go and look at that braking again. We have that right rear wheel locking. We would leave that at 0.2. And we say OK, and we run. Now, a couple other things like these steer. Let's just go ahead to the vehicles. For the tire tracks, we could make it dashed instead of solid. Then we go to vehicle 1, same thing. Make it dashed instead of solid. Now when we run it. And we could actually, one other thing is, let's go ahead and change the tire to a little darker green. So it matches the car. And the same with this one. Let's make this match the car. Not really a good match, but there's a good one. Kind of a brown. Now you see when you run it, at least you know which steer are coming. Another thing that you could do is when you click on the vehicles, you can click and say, I only want to see skids. That's for vehicle 1, 2, and then for vehicle 1, same thing. Only want to see skids. Now when we run it, you don't have to rerun these. This is just showing you there's a little bit of skidding right there at the last instant. And just out of curiosity, if we click on here, if we hit F1, that also brings up the help file. And the help file will describe that variable increment, whether it's a 0, a 1, or a 2. And 1 and 2 are the two most common. 2 is probably the most common you'll be using. And any card you're on, I call them cards obviously because it's been around for a while, but any of these input files you are interested, what do they mean? You just click on the F1 and that brings up the help file. And it brings it up at the input card, I call them, but it's actually a line of input. So I wanted to return to the grid to show you a few other things, like if you want to make the tables larger and a couple other things. Just like we showed in the other grid, you can hit F1 on any card, whatever card is highlighted. If you hit F1, it brings up the help file. And from the help file, it gives you better description, etc. There's a lot of write-up on information and things, discussions and all that. But now if we have a table, if we want to expand the table, you have to do it from the grid currently. And let's just say for the vehicle 2, you recall we put in a 5-degree swerve, and there's 2 items. If I click on that and I change this to 4, and I say update table, it now makes it 4 entries. So it's 0 to 1, and then if we look at our view menu up here, there's also, we mentioned the run summary, input, echo, etc. And the run summary 1.62 is when we hit. So if we wanted to bring in steer or something, or braking or something like that, we'd say 1.6 and then 1.7. We would maybe make that steer go back to 0 or something. You see how then, because I don't have a 2 here, I have to actually tell what time to hit. I think it was actually 1.62. And then, so it ramps between 1.62 and 1.72 to take that steer off. Same with braking. If we think that there was some kind of braking or something, we can have that. Again, if you have a 2 here, it's pre-impact, post-impact. But the same with these braking tables. Let's just say for vehicle 2, if we make that a 1 here, and we can also make this 4, and we say update table, and it says, yeah, we want to change 2 to 4. So now you notice we have 0.2 of a G from 0 to 0.1. And then let's just say a 1.62 and 1.72, which is impact and rest. And let's just say in that vehicle, the right front wheel went from engine braking to locked. Now when we go ahead and run this, see it has the vehicle braking, etc. You can't really see that, but one other thing is there's charts both in grid and here. We have in both ways. I'm going to have to make this smaller so it fits on here. We have grids in both locations where you can go and select chart. There's the main, which is vehicle 1, vehicle 2, but if you wanted vehicle 1, you can select a chart and you can create charts. You can either hit a plus here to create charts, etc. We'll have a chart function later, but right now just the main point of this is to show you the steer. If we look at steer right here, if I click on that and I close this, then you see that's for vehicle 1 and that's for vehicle 2. You notice vehicle 2 we had the swerve to 5 degrees. Vehicle 1 we just have a constant -7 degrees. And that concludes our presentation of some steering and braking table manipulation. We may have some others. If you have any questions, please let us know, and thank you for watching.